you know, obviously, being away from home and away from our fans in New Orleans. I mean, obviously that's the tough part about being out here in California for this training camp. But I'd say we're excited about being out here. We're excited about getting an opportunity to get out here in the Southern California weather and practice in this type of environment. I think we got a great setup in terms of the hotel, the facility here at UCI. So I'm excited about what I think we can accomplish. I think when you get into this type of environment, one of the things that I think it allows you to do, I think it allows you to push the guys harder for longer. There's nothing easy about training camp. And certainly there's a toughness that comes with practicing in the environment that we practice at back home in Metairie. But there's also a challenge that comes along with that. And at some point, sometimes you can reach the point of diminishing marginal returns on that investment in terms of practicing out there, in the heat and humidity. So I'm excited about seeing how our guys respond out here and seeing how they work. And I think we're just ready to get started.
Is there like a timeline, Chase Young, just as far as when we might see him?
Chase Young will participate in some form of practice tomorrow.
Okay.
We have 3 players, Tano, Nephi, and Juwan Johnson. Those 3 players will not be practicing tomorrow. Everybody else on the roster will be practicing in some form or fashion. Some may be a little bit more limited based on coming off injuries and things like that, but everybody else is going to be practicing tomorrow.
D.A., what's your expectation with Alvin tomorrow? You expect him on the field?
I expect Alvin to be out. He was out here today. He ran the conditioning test. Every indication that we've gotten is that he's going to be out here practicing tomorrow, and so that's what we expect. We're looking forward to working with him. I think having him out here and having him practice and having him work, I think that's beneficial for all of us. I mean, obviously with a new system and new offense, I think that's important. And yet, I think we all understand there's a business aspect to the game of football, and so. But every indication that we've gotten is that he'll be out here practicing tomorrow.
By his standards, not the best last 2 seasons for him by his standards of his career. This new offense you're putting in, you think it plays to his skill set even better than?
Well, look, obviously he was there for the first couple of days of minicamp, and there was a few plays in there where you really saw how this offense, this scheme can benefit him, and in turn benefit us. And so, I'm excited to see what that looks like.
How does he look? You said he ran the conditioning.
He ran great. He ran awesome. I mean, there was zero concern about what he was going to look like coming in here. He's come into shape. Every time he's come into camp, he comes in tremendous shape. And so, he looked great.
Did you guys talk before this at all?
Just briefly, but nothing. Nothing major.
What kind of message do you think it sends, though, when he does show up amid a known contract disagreement? Because I know he doesn't want to be fined, but still some guys do hold out. I think I don't know what that message is. He's here. He's got a job to do. It's football practice, and so. I think that's what he's here to do.
You touched on this a bit, but you talk about business decisions or, the business of it. Y'all expect him to practice, but does that mean he's going to practice fully? Like, is there any part of practice he won't participate in knowing that that's going on?
Not from our standpoint, as we sit here right now. I mean, he's fully healthy, and so, our anticipation is that he'll practice. So I'm not going to get into any hypotheticals after that. You know what I mean?
I guess I meant like sometimes there's situations where players set out team drills for whatever reason. Sometimes in contract disputes.
Yeah, look, it's nothing that's been discussed.
Dennis, meanwhile, we were talking about this stuff with Marshawn Lattimore until he came at the end of minicamp, and he's back here now too. Is that in a really good place? Like, better than you were hoping at the beginning of the offseason as
Um,
far as?
Yeah, look, I think we're back to business as usual, business as normal. And look, I think that the exciting part in our secondary, and probably in particular at the corner position, is I think there's a lot of depth there, and I think there's a lot of position competition there. And I think all of us are in a battle. When I say all of us, I'm talking about the whole corner position. You know, at the end of the day, we all got to come out here and earn it. You know, and so, but I think he's in a good mindset, and yeah, I think he's ready to, you know, to prove that, you know, he's still one of the top corners in our league.
Dennis, I know you guys have said you feel good about what you have on the offensive and left and right tackle. But how much are you really looking forward to getting out here with the pads are on there?
This is what it's all about, right? You know, and look, we're still not there yet, right? We got another, you know, 4 practices before we can even put the pads on. You know, so we're still not quite at that point. But certainly training camp, being able to evaluate guys in pads, playing the game the way it's supposed to be played, is really where the true evaluation comes in. So, yeah, I think that, and we're all excited about that.
Dennis, how would you describe where you are with the offensive line right now? It seems like you got at least a couple of jobs up for grabs, right?
Yeah. Look, I mean, you know, obviously we've got a couple of incumbent guys in Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz, and then I think after that, you know, there's a lot of jobs that are up for grabs. And look, here's the great thing: you go out here and you practice, and you come out and you compete day in and day out, and eventually the cream rises to the top. And so, but I don't think we're at that position right now where we can say these are the 5 that are going to go out there on day one. But I think that'll sort itself out over the course of the next month and a half.
Dennis, when did you all have a really solid grasp that you weren't going to have Brian Ramczyk this season? And do you feel comfortable with where you're at, knowing that he's not going to be a part of it?
Well, look, I would say whenever you lose a player of the caliber of Ryan Ramczyk, that is a little bit of an unsettling feeling. And so, yeah, I think that hurts, not having a player of his caliber. I do think that we have some guys that I think are capable of stepping in and filling in that position, and some young guys that I think can step up and potentially fill that spot. So I'm excited about some of the youth that we have on the offensive line. I would say probably sometime through the course of middle of the off season, you know, I think we began to realize that it's not responding the way that we wanted it to, and yet there was nobody that was willing to, you know, kind of make any concrete statements as to whether or not he was going to be ready to play or not. I think we just wanted to give it time to see what happened, and so, you know, it was probably a week or 2 ago that I think we realized it's just not going to be ready to go.
And was it
Not respond-
was it advantageous to just kind of get it out of the way early, knowing that he's not going to be here, and just settle it early rather than drag it out to the beginning of the season?
Yeah, I think we got to a point where it was pretty obvious, you know, in terms of his mindset, being able to play, and I think once the player comes to the realization that I don't think I'm going to be ready, you know, then I think it just made sense for us to go ahead and make the move then, and then it opened up some roster spots so we can have a little bit more flexibility and some things that we could do in other areas.
Dennis, just to clarify, I mean, I think you knew around the time of owners' meetings that at that time it hadn't been responding early. So he had a surgery in like January-ish, and he
Yeah, I
the
think
surgery
the
recover?
initial response after the surgery, we felt pretty good about that. Because I think I talked to you guys at the combine, you know, and I was feeling pretty good about that. And then, you know, probably a couple weeks after that, you know, it just didn't take the turn that we were hoping that it would. And so, and then I think from that point on, it was just like, let's give it time, let's see what happens. And, you know, it just didn't respond in a way that he or we would want it to.
Is there anything you guys are looking at that might be able to help get you guys up, like the fast start. You finished really well the last couple of years. Is there anything you guys will do this time of year maybe a little bit differently than other years? Besides being here?
Well, look, this may or may not be a factor. Just getting out of some of the heat and things of that nature. And look, we've won our opener the last 2 games. Last year we got off to a 2-0 start and had a real opportunity in the 3rd game. And so I don't know that it's necessarily the fast start. I think the middle of the season's where we got to do a better job. When you get into the meat and potatoes of your schedule, we got to do a better job in there of playing more consistent and winning more consistently throughout the course of the middle of the season.
Would you think that's more of like a war of attrition or mental fatigue kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's a consistency thing, and I think we've got to improve in that area in a lot of different ways. I mean, I think that's coaching, I think that's playing, I think that's everything.
When you were talking about Ramczyk and the knee not responding, can you give me more clarity on that? Is that like a pain issue or a structural issue?
Well, you're probably asking the wrong person because I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know that. I know that we felt like there was a couple of procedures a couple of ways that we could have gone about this. One was a little bit more cautiously optimistic, which would give us, what we felt like still was a good chance. One was a lot more, either yes or no, meaning, you do the procedure. If it responds right, then he'll be good. You don't, he probably is done. So I think the course of action that we took was a little bit more, cautiously optimistic, thinking that might be able to, put us over the hump.
So is he gonna have that second one now, or second option?
That's nothing that's been discussed with us. I think right now he's in Wisconsin, going through some rehab, and we're just leaving all open, options open for the future.
When you have talked to him, how is he taking this?
It's probably a better question for him in terms of exactly, how he's feeling. I mean, obviously, I can sense some, obviously some disappointment. But overall, I mean, I think he's, at peace with where he's at right now.
What do you mean by at peace, like in terms of?
Not playing this season.
Yeah, but what about but still working towards maybe playing again at some
Yeah, I
point?
think we're going to leave all options open. I mean, I don't think anything past this season is off the table.
So Chris Olave was not relatively minor then?
Yeah, he'll be out here tomorrow. I think we'll probably limit him a little bit to start, and then go from there.
Was that the shoulder from the weight room or something else?
Back.
Does bringing in a new offense kind of shake things up sometimes? It's just because the training camp get a little monotonous at times with a new offense.
Yeah, look, I definitely. You do the same thing for 17 straight years or whatever it had been, I think sometimes you just need a change. And I do think change, not change just for change's sake, but change to kind of shake things up, reinvigorate the offense just a little bit. I thought that was something that was necessary. And look, I saw some positive signs throughout the spring, and hopefully those things will continue, throughout training camp.
To what extent does this change also respond to league trends as well as, difference in personnel now than maybe you had 5 years ago?
In terms of, I don't know that I
So
totally understand the
you
question.
talk about changing the offense.
Yeah.
And you say, to shake things up or whatever, but also does it also figure into monitoring what's doing well in the league? And the personnel you have?
Well, I would say from a defensive coach's perspective, I went out this offseason and looked at some schemes that I feel like, are troublesome schemes, challenging, right? And if they're executed at a high level with good players, they become even more challenging. And so I think that was part of the, part of the discussion. And this, I mean, this goes back years and years. I mean, it's not like this is a totally new scheme, but each year you kind of put a few new wrinkles into it and becomes a little bit more innovative. And but this game is still, it's still about having good ball plays with good players, with good execution, and now you have a chance to have exceptional results. And so that's really, I don't care what scheme you're running, if you're not executing it at a high level, then it's not going to make a whole lot of difference.
As you kind of talked about this before, but like in your experience, having a whole team just kind of all together out in a place for a while, whether it was Fort Worth or the Greenbrier, or whatever, what does that do for like the camaraderie?
Yeah, look, I mean, I like it. I like, when you get, a group of guys with one common goal and one common vision, and we all come to, a spot, and you kind of eliminate a lot of distractions that kind of come with being at home, unintentional distractions, and yet there's things that take you away from the focus of getting better as an individual from a football standpoint, and collectively as a group from a football standpoint. So, yeah, I like it. I'm excited about spending the little less than a month out here and seeing if we can't build a foundation for outstanding football team.
Dennis, I mean, obviously you guys have the construction of the facility and stuff. I mean, did that just make it a natural win-win, or is this something you might have chosen to do in year 3?
Well, I think, look, I think it's always something that we look at and consider. Again, no different than we were talking about from an offensive standpoint, having something to change some things up, to stimulate a little bit of interest. I think change every now and then is something that's a positive. Certainly the facility upgrades was going to be a challenge to hold a training camp with all the things that are going on. I mean, we got a fence in our indoor facility that makes it difficult for us to use the indoor. And I looked at the forecast. I think it's supposed to rain for the next month, in New Orleans. So that would have made it even more challenging. So I think all those things kind of came together and led us to this.
You guys talked a lot about culture at the beginning of this offseason. Is that a part of it too? I mean, reinvigoration and I mean,
Yeah, I think all of it's part of it. I think, but yet I don't think you have to come out to California to build the culture. So I don't think that was the driving force for training camp. And yet, it is part of. Look, it's not all going to be just the same. It's not all going to be just the way it was, and we don't get to roll the ball out there and just pick up, where we left off. So some things have to be different. The results hadn't been what we need them to be, and so things have to change and things have to be different. This is one of them.
Hey Dennis, with such a veteran group, specifically on the defense, like, what are one of the things maybe some media talk about is whether guys get older or fall off. Like, what are some things you look at to judge whether a player is either still at the peak of his career or like falling off, and then what gives you confidence that that's not going to happen this year?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, you're obviously always evaluating those things in terms of, player production. And so, yeah, I think I don't think you're always looking at the stats, because I don't think the stats always tell the true story. I think you're looking at what you see on tape. And then you're trying to take into account any other variables that might come along with that, whether it be injury or anything like that. So, yeah, look, we've got a couple of older veteran players that I still think have good football left in them. But the reality is that this is the time that you have to show it. And so. Yeah, we got to see it at some point out here during the course of training camp, preseason, those types of things.
Obviously,
We have time for one or two more.
closing practices to fans is a big difference from previous training camps at home. As a coach, do you like the aspect of it not being open, or were you hoping that fans would be able to attend?
Yeah, look, I mean, I always enjoy having the fans at practice. Again, that's another change up that I think invigorates, our players. And so, But that's one of the unique things about being out here in Southern California. And I think the league came out and said something about having to close these practices when you're in the another market too. So that plays a factor in it.
Rashid got an extension last week. Is that just reflective of kind of the expectations going into year 3 for you?
Yeah, look, I think it's kind of a win-win for him and for us. We get to kind of lock a good young player up for a couple of years and feel good about where that puts us from a financial standpoint. It gives him a little bit of security too, and so I think that just says that we have some positive feelings towards him and feel like he's got a bright future. All right, thanks guys.
Thanks, guys.